How you doing? Welcome to the family meeting. This is the first family meeting post Walking in Unity's release. Walking in Unity dropped yesterday. Hey, I can't see us.
You don't need to announce it to the world. Sometimes I've got to do things on other windows.
Okay. Cranky. Walking in Unity dropped yesterday. We had our launch party on Monday. It was hosted by Elisa Childers. If you missed it, check it out on YouTube or on any of our YouTube channels. It was a good time. We had...
Well, no, that's not true. Not on any of our YouTube channels. It's on the Center for Biblical Unity YouTube channel, and it's also on
Theology Mom,
Facebook. And we dropped it as a podcast on the Center for Biblical Unity podcast.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day. So check out Walking in Unity. You can buy it on Amazon or at Christian Books. We actually saw it at Barnes and Noble by our house yesterday. That was a good time.
Show this very... we were both exhausted.
Yeah.
We're looking a little rough. Okay.
We are. The raggedy is there.
Yeah.
What happened to my hair? I have no idea.
What happened to my hair?
I have no idea what happened.
I don't know what we're doing.
But yes, we saw Walking in Unity at Barnes and Noble. And someone approached us yesterday and said, "Hey, do you guys have a book here?" And we were like, "Yeah, it just came out." So then he asked us about it.
Taking pictures in front of at Barnes and Noble. That's normal behavior.
There's that.
So he comes up to us and he's like, "So what's going on here? What are you guys doing?" And he kind of looks a little bit like John Cooper to me.
But he was really nice. His name is John, actually.
Yeah.
And he then bought Walking in Unity and then had us sign it. Yeah. So it was really fun. It was cool to see it out there. Yeah, I'm looking a mess. I don't know what.
I'm looking a mess. We were both exhausted.
Yeah. It was such a good day.
Yeah, but it was just kind of funny because he was like, "Well, I'm going to have to buy this," because you kind of told him about the ministry and described it, and so then he ran and bought it and had both of us sign it. So there you are signing it. So it's just kind of a funny random bump in to somebody, and he'd never heard of the ministry, but that was kind of fun.
Yeah. So Petty Mo told me specifically that she has a bone to pick with us. She's very upset that she was not invited to the book launch party. I like to party.
Bye, Felicia.
Who, Felicia? Tell me what her zip code is.
Bye.
So, yes, Petty Mom was very sad that she did not get her invite to
she might be making
the family meeting
in another video very soon.
And she also, what would you like?
I don't have equity over here. I gotta move this camera.
Well, there's two of us.
I know. I'm trying to get us. Oops. There went our light.
Father, here we go. Here, I don't know.
That's what happens.
Y'all don't understand. There's a lot going on.
It's very tight where we are. It's very tight.
Patty, I am so sorry that you did not get your invitation to the launch party, but you were missed and people asked about you.
Okay, you're talking to a puppet. Put it down. Put down the puppet.
You know what? Love me. Family, do you guys love Petty? See, Petty Mo needs encouragement in her spirit.
No.
People do not understand.
She needs to go.
We love Petty
somewhere.
She's just gonna sit here right now. Hey. So aside from Walking in Unity, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say really quick before off the topic of Walking in Unity. We want to encourage everyone. Right now we're at surprisingly, we're still at number 1. I thought maybe that would only last for a day, but we're on number 1 in apologetics, which is the category that we're in. I don't know why that's not loading. There we go. And the audiobook is number 4, so that's not too shabby.
Yeah.
And Melissa Doherty's book is on pre-order. It's up there at number 10. So kind of fun. The Kindle version is at 16. So, but what we really need now is
this is the biggest way you can help us out.
Now. Yeah. So We've been asking you for a couple months, please pre-order, please pre-order. Now we're going to have to make a different request, which is what we know that many of you have already even finished the book or are close to finishing the book. So what we really need you to do is go down and write a little review so that it populates down here, because that's what will help push it out. So right now we have no reviews.
But that's because it came out less than 24 hours ago.
So, but I've already gotten some messages from people that are like, I already finished it. And so what we really need you to do is, you don't have to write a long review. It can be 2 sentences, but just go there and write a review, because that will continue to help push it out and keep the momentum going. So what we need, this is a great way. It's totally free for you to help support the ministry, is to go write a review on Amazon and or Goodreads.
Yeah.
So
yes. And I've received, and I know we both have received a couple of messages from people saying that Amazon has delayed their shipment. We checked with our publisher, and what has happened is that due to the hurricane, there have been some delays in some of their drop dates. And so if
Beth's book was also impacted.
Yeah. So if you get an update from Amazon that your delivery date, which was supposed to be yesterday, got pushed back, that is what happened per Amazon.
Yeah. So we know some of you are waiting, like Cindy says she's waiting, and they have plenty of inventory, but there's just shipping delays due to the hurricane. So our publisher did look into it.
Oh, Elaine said she's going to request that her public library carry a copy. That would be amazing.
What we did was we requested that our local Barnes and Noble carry some copies. So they ordered 5 copies for us. And that's how, when we went there yesterday, we were able to see them on the shelf. So, that's another thing you can do is go to your local bookstore and ask for it. And if they don't have it in stock, which they likely won't, you can ask them to order a small number of copies. And then that way it's on the shelf for people to look at and maybe discover, for the first time.
I spoke with someone at Barnes & Noble a couple of days ago, and it is on the shelves in some Barnes & Nobles, but it's likely more conservative areas.
Yeah.
So I might not find it in the middle of like West Hollywood, but I did find it in Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because Bob had gone there a couple of weeks ago and had them pre-order it. So anyways, so that's some updates about the book. Thanks to everybody who pre-ordered and all of that. And we hope you're enjoying it. We've been posting pictures on social media. So if you want to send us your picture of you with the book and whatever that looks like, it might be just the book, or we had our friends, I won't out them since I didn't ask their permission, but let's call them B and C, who were reading their copy yesterday on their porch in North Carolina, that I posted on the CFBU Facebook page. Today we got a great picture from C in Center, Missouri, population 508.
That's crazy. We've received quite a few pictures in.
Oh, I haven't seen them. These are the only ones that I've.
Oh no, I've seen them. Yeah, well, there's that. Hey, Angel has a good suggestion. She says you can even copy
reviews.
It went away.
Here's Sorry, Allison's.
Angel. Yes.
And
here's Brandon Rhodes.
I was trying not to say their name.
Is he in the witness protection program?
No, but he didn't give us permission.
You can even copy and paste the same review on different platforms. Yes. Hello, Desiree. Desiree says, I'm here but can't stay the whole time. Congratulations on your book. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's jump in. Let's do a little woke preacher clip action. Because woke preacher clips never disappoints.
Yeah. I tried to get him on the show a couple of times. I'm pretty sure it's a him. And it's an anonymous account if you don't know what Woke Preacher Clips is. And he clips various kind of progressive and progressive adjacent sermons and conference speeches and all kind of stuff. And I tried to get him to come on our show, and I told him I would conceal his identity. I think I almost kind of had him talked into it, but he clipped the family meeting last week.
He did, and he shared it.
I know.
Like,
So, all right. So we're going to look at this little clip here. Do you want to do any setup about this?
Well, I think when people see it, they'll automatically know what's happening. But here, let me give some little info. This is a Black church. I want to say it's in Atlanta, but I actually am not sure that it's in Atlanta. It might be in Florida. It's somewhere in the South. It's either Atlanta or Florida. But there is a senator from the state of Florida, so it's probably in Florida, Rosalind Osgood. She's a Democrat, and she is in a Black church encouraging people to vote for Kamala Harris because #DEI. And so she has her own spin on DEI and takes a lot of things out of context. It's a mess.
What I thought was particularly interesting is what Preacher Clips included in the caption, and I don't know how he knows this, but Ms. Osgood has a Master of Divinity from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. It's a Southern Baptist Seminary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Union or something.
You shocked?
First of all, I was wondering how he knows this. I don't know. But yeah, it was a little surprising.
I'm sure if you Google her name, because she's a senator,
yeah,
all of her information will be there.
Okay. All right.
Black church, I didn't sit down. That's funny for real. Y'all have your fall clothes on. It's quite chilly. I don't know why it is so cold, but this is ridiculous. Nobody has time to be this cold, but yes, I do.
It's mid-October.
I have on my little booties and a scarf because it is cold and no one should be cold. It is ridiculous.
All right, are you ready to watch this?
Roll it, partner.
Oh, creepy puppet. All right.
We've had a massive attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That should outrage all of us as Christians because we are all a recipient of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Remember, it was diversity that took the gospel from the Jews to the Gentile. It was equity that Jesus died on that old rugged cross to equally pay for my sins and your sins. And good God Almighty, it was inclusion that God, before our mama met our daddy, had already included us in his plan of divine sovereign salvation. So Bethel, will you help me by voting and blocking a shot and voting to elect Kamala Harris as the next president of these United States of America and Tim Walz as the vice president? We will not tolerate racism any longer. We will not stand to be demeaned and disrespected. We will not allow our God to be insulted. And we're going to use our prophetic voice and our vote to block this shot. God bless you and God bless America.
Oh, my word.
We shall overcome someday.
Oh, gosh. No. Oh, my word.
So it was diversity that took the gospel from the Jews to the Gentiles. Look at God. Won't he do it? And equity was because of the old rugged cross that he died equally. Out of everything, I think her definition of equity was low key the closest.
Yeah, I think there's something
to the true definition.
Yeah.
But the inclusion, you let your mama get with your daddy so that you could be included. Included in what? In the number?
That was so bad. Okay, so here's my question for you.
Oh, I had another question. Go ahead.
Is this Christian nationalism? Because if the Republican candidate went to a church and said, God bless America, and was saying, hey, vote for me, or if we had some surrogate in a church saying those things, I feel like the mainstream media would be all over that and saying, oh, that's Christian nationalism. You can't do that.
Yeah, it would either be Christian nationalism or it would be whiteness.
Or
And
both.
those two things are kind of synonymous. But yes, so we would definitely be shut down. And it doesn't matter the color of the skin of the person who says it. So if I go into a church and I start to, speak biblically on why I think you should vote for candidate X and how I see candidate X's stances, while I don't agree with that candidate on all things, and there are some things that I think that candidate is flat out dead wrong on, but the majority of their stances or a good percentage do align more biblically than with any other party, I would be accused of Christian nationalism and whiteness. The problem that I'm seeing is that there's more and more emerging this idea of two nations or two thoughts of what it means to be an American. One of those ideas is this super secular, super left, idea that they want to put under the banner of freedom, a freedom to marry, a freedom to choose, freedom to be, in the nation of the free. There's all of this language of freedom and what it means to be an American, but that doesn't align with our historic ideals of the American culture, and nor does it align with the biblical ideals of what it means to be an American. And so you have this one more, not even more, but super secular idea of what it means to be American or a national, and that idea is seeping into the church, and it's not seeped in to many Black churches. It is all the way in. It is dancing in the pews and in the aisles in many Black churches. This idea that to be an American, I need the freedom to choose, and that is somehow also a biblical idea because I profess the name of Jesus, or because in the Old Testament it says, choose you this day who you will serve. Well, God gives me the right to choose, and so who are you to take my choice away from me? So there's that version of what it means to be an American, and how we should all be striving for that idea or ideal of what it means to be an American. Unfortunately, those things are antithetical to Scripture, to Christianity. The other side is where we would land in a more historic understanding of Christianity and the Scriptures, and the push or fight for those ideals.
But either way, I mean, there does seem to be a double standard that's happening here. That it's somehow okay to come in, have politicians come in to Black churches and say, God bless America, and get out the vote, and not just get out the vote, go vote your conscience. It's like overtly vote Democrat, vote Kamala, and all of that. Whereas on the other side, there is this kind of carefulness a lot of times of like, well, we're just going to encourage people to vote their conscience, and we're not going to tell people how to vote. That would be over the line. But one is viewed as Christian nationalism and the other is not.
But I don't think that this is necessarily a entirely white-Black issue. I do think that if there were more quote unquote white evangelical churches that were opening their doors to people like Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, I think that's his name, they would also be seen in much the same vein as this Black church. The Black church just has been so embedded with or enmeshed in the Democratic Party for so long. The Democratic Party feels like they have a home in the Black church. Many of the Black politicians will say that they are Christian. And so because usually what being Black is synonymous with is being a Democrat. So because those two things are so intertwined, the Democrat Party can come in and out. They ebb and flow in the Black church Like
So
nothing.
I think your point is more of a ideological issue than a race issue. You know, if you're progressive, you can go into church and say vote for Kamala, but if you're conservative, you can't go into a church, no matter what color, and say vote for the other candidate.
Yes. I think that if you do that, if you are a conservative, regardless of skin color, and the left finds out, then it is Christian nationalism, but they will not call what they're doing, their own antics, Christian nationalism. Theirs is the fight for freedom. Theirs is the fight for choice. Theirs is, all of these things, wanting to make sure that, like she said, that people aren't, what did she say, making fun of your God or insulting your God. It is an insult to God himself from their vantage point if we are not allowing a woman to choose. It is an insult to, now I would say, I would venture that most of the people in that Black church would say that homosexuality was wrong, but they will not uphold that same standard in regards to abortion. And while some of them may say, well, abortion isn't right for me, but who am I to take away the right to choose? Even if they were firm on abortion and on LGBTQ plus issues, the idea of race is so embedded in the Black church, or in many Black churches, that it's enough to drive people to go against the scriptures in regards to things like abortion or LGBTQ plus issues. We see this from white people too. Ray Ortland a couple weeks ago said the exact same thing. He's not in the Black church. He said that there were more pressing issues, and those issues were fundamental to our freedoms. So because there are more pressing issues than abortion or LGBTQ+, which is the exact same argument that I think many people in the Black church will put forward, they will vote for a Harris and Walz. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. I still think it's hypocrisy. LeChat says, we will not tolerate biblical illiteracy any longer. I think it's a rejoinder to the statement in the video where she says, we will not tolerate racism any longer. So, I think it's a kind of a humorous comment. Poor Krista, you still don't get Black privilege. We say whatever we want and expect everyone to just jump in line. Black equals right by virtue of everything we've been through. A whole mess.
Woo! I feel like, man, late chat, you need to come on this string, because you preaching. Preaching. You better preach and say that. Even Petty Mo about to fan you. But it's so true, and we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to say that, killing our kids or the Down Low brothers. Oh, I should do a podcast on the Down Low brothers, me and Kevin. The high rate of homosexuality, which leads to the high rate of HIV and AIDS within our community. How all of this is a bigger issue than what any of us want to talk about, and how a lot of this ties back to the Democrat Party.
Yeah. Jenny says, whatever that was, I would not call it Christianity. I would agree with you on that. But I think that it's rough.
The Black Nick Fuentes. That's funny. Somebody else called me the Black Candace. I mean, not the Black Candace Owens, the Christian Candace Owens.
I don't think they're calling you that. They're calling that
her.
Her.
Yeah. I was like, me.
No.
But yeah. Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, never mind.
I think, just real quickly, I want to refer people to a helpful article. I wanted to do this as a podcast, but with my dissertation, I can't really do it right now. But I wanted to just refer people to this very useful article on Christian nationalism that I found recently. It's on the Christ Over All website, which I like a lot of their content. There is one issue that I have a concern with them about, but I'm not going to bring that up right now. But Kevin's written a couple of posts for them, and I really like a lot of the things that they're doing at Christ Over All. But there's an article on their website called "What is the Spectrum of Major Views on Political Theology, a Proposed Taxonomy Seven Views on Religion and Government by Andy Naselli. Now, I don't know anything about Mr. Naselli, but this is a very useful article because it defines terms like politics, political theology, and it goes into these seven views of the relationship between government and religion. And it has little graphics with it to kind of illustrate the point. And, view number one, for example, is secular suppression. Secular government suppresses religion. This is sort of Marxism or socialism. But then they have some bullet points underneath each one. View number two is religious separation. Religious must radically separate from the government. And what I like about it is it gives examples. So this would be the Anabaptist position, traditional Mennonites. Modern day example would be Stanley Hauerwas and Greg Boyd as theologians who advocate for this view. View three is religious neutrality. The government must be religiously neutral. So keep government away from any particular religion. And then there's this wall of separation. Historical examples of this would be classical liberalism, John Locke, John Stuart Mill. But I would, and also libertarianism with this emphasis on individual autonomy, progressive liberalism, emphasis on the welfare state and freedom from traditional sexual ethics. So libertarians would be in view three. I think this is where James Lindsay would be. He's really been doing a lot of posts on Twitter lately to shore up the classical liberal position and the separation of religion and government. Now, I could be wrong about that, but if I'm understanding and interpreting his tweets correctly. View number four is religious influence. The government should not promote only one particular religion, yet religion may influence the government within limited parameters. So this is kind of an interesting position. This would be most Baptists. The Second London Confession, 1689, would fit into this. Congregationalists and Quakers, some of those. So modern examples would be Wayne Grudem, Jonathan Lehman, David Van Drunen out of Westminster Escondido, Andrew T. Walker, whose book I've been reading would be in this. Book? Yeah, would be in this. Scott and all. He's from G3 Ministries. And so I think this is where like Virgil Walker and Vody would be in this kind of religious influence of we can elect Christian politicians and they can try to influence policy to a limited degree, but the government isn't promoting Christianity per se.
Would this be considered some type of then religious plurality?
I think so. Yeah, of a tolerance of certain religions, but I think it would also see boundaries on religion, like whether or not we would call Satanism a religion. I'm not sure how they would answer that. Then view five is the Christian government. The government and religion overlap. And this starts to get into more of a theonomy, a theonomic point of view. So modern examples of this would be, historically would be the Anglicans, Reformed Scholastics, but I think also more helpful is the modern examples is Doug Wilson, Joe Rigney. These are the Moscow guys. And so some versions of Christian nationalism, though not everyone holds that label, would hold to the view five, the Christian government. I think for me personally, I'm somewhere between 4 and 5 right now. This is an issue I'm still thinking through. I don't know if there's a 4.5, but I'm somewhere between those two. And then view 6 is religion over government, where religion governs the government and directs government to enforce a particular religion. Possibly modern examples would be Rushduni, who is arguably the godfather of theonomy. But, questions about where Stephen Wolfe fits into this picture. Is he a religion over government guy, where we're going to actively discourage members of other religions? Will there be policies or penalties against them?
Part of what I see with the issue with that one is that if you have a nation that has religion over government as set up in their, infrastructure, what do you do if that religion, that assumes that the religion that we are talking about is always Christian. You know what I mean? Because if another religion comes in and sets up camp as religion over government, we could be in trouble.
Like, let's say the religion is Islam.
Yeah.
And so we're being very particular about which religion we want. Finally, I think is view 7 is government over religion. The government governs and enforces religion. And, is this the they would say modern examples are Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. And possibly Constantine would be an historical example. Anyways, it's kind of interesting. If you go to the Christ Overall website, there's also a series of podcasts that were super interesting that they did with a number of Christian leaders, where they interviewed them on their positions about government and religion. Like Kevin DeYoung was in there, and I think they had one with Doug Wilson, and they just kind of had all these different perspectives and kind of asked them to use this taxonomy for where do you fall in this. It's an interesting podcast series. So I think it's just helpful to know that there's a lot of different ways of tackling this. And so when you see something like the video we watched, then I'm hoping people will stop to ask, like, oh, what is the relationship between government and religion that's happening in this scenario?
Yes. If we go back to the blog, sorry, I'm trying to think of it. I think it's interesting to point out like some of the distinctions or ways that we should be thinking about what is truly beneficial for Christians in society, especially today. I was thinking about the Religious Freedom Institute and how they definitely advocate for religious plurality, but looking at why do we advocate for, a plurality of religions? One, because, we don't want to just force Christianity on someone, but we want to also make sure that, we're able to put ideas forward and wrestle through ideas and help to, what we would call evangelism, evangelize people and bring them into the faith, because truly we do have a better worldview, not because it's something that's forced on someone.
Yeah, and Jenny's asking a really important question here. She says, my only concern with religion and government is the number of religions we have. That could cause a lot of contention. I don't mind politicians being informed by their religion, but not sure they would rule to benefit. They should rule to benefit their religion. And Jenny, you're asking a very important question that I think that evangelicals and Christians in general are trying to wrestle through right now in our country. And the question is not like, how can we be unbiased? The question is what is our standard? What is the best bias to be biased by? We cannot escape our bias, but we want to understand our standard. And for us as Christians, there are some issues that we think should be codified into law, because we believe that that is the best way that will lead to true human flourishing. And so in the competition of ideas, for us, politics is downstream of our theology. And so something like the influence view or the overlapping view is, I think that's why I said I'm kind of a 4.5. I'm somewhere in between here, because when I think about human flourishing, the idea of traditional marriage, or what we call traditional marriage, I think ought to be the law of the land, because I do believe that children ought to grow up with a mother and father, and that the research shows and will continue to strengthen that that's what leads to flourishing for a child. And that killing our children is immoral and not a good idea. And not simply because it has pragmatic value, but I believe that killing our children violates the law of God. And what we see in the Bible is that when nations get overrun with murder, they tend to society breaks down, and that nation begins to go into disarray. And so you're right, like those nations that are run by a political ideology that's informed by Islam, we see how they view the human person is implemented into their laws and policies. And we would say that won't lead to true human flourishing. And we see that lived out at times in some Muslim-based countries. And so you're absolutely right. Americans are engaged in a discussion right now of how do we handle the question of religious pluralism. And some Christians are saying Christianity needs to be given a privileged state because it is Christian principles, and I would argue in large measure also Jewish principles, that lead to true human flourishing. And that should be the privileged religion. And that we would celebrate Christian holidays, and that we are privileging a particular religious perspective. And that is done in Israel. They have a law of government that is based on Judaism to some degree, and they celebrate their Jewish holidays. And you go to Muslim countries, their politics is downstream of their religion, and they celebrate their holidays. So it shouldn't be weird, strange, or peculiar that some countries want to organize themselves around policies and laws that are downstream from the Christian religion. I think that Christianity is unique because, and I think Judaism is this way too, is that because we believe in the inherent human dignity, in the dignity, value, and worth of the human person, there are certain laws that follow from that. So you're asking a very important and provocative question. So I wanted to give you an extended answer to that. People have different ideas about how acceptable or insulting it is to proselytize. Yeah, they do. But I'm going to share my perspective on this after much reflection and study. As I think that the Great Commission is the foundation for the First Amendment. That in order for us to truly be able to preach the gospel unhindered, we need to have free speech. But that also means we're going to have other crazy speech, where there are other worldviews in the marketplace of ideas also competing for the hearts and minds and emotions of the people. But the reason the First Amendment is so important is because of Matthew 28, 19, and 20. That's an opinion. I am borrowing that from Andrew T. Walker's book on religious freedom. Okay. Cindy says most religions share some common morality, at least the major ones. That's kind of true. Islam does not have the idea of human dignity, as far as I understand it. That's not to say there aren't Muslims who believe in human dignity, but the question of whether it's grounded in their holy book, I think, is a disputed issue of the idea of whether or not they believe in the image of God. And the people that I know that are more experts in Islam tell me that it's not a thing in their religion that humans have inherent dignity, value, and worth, or creating the image of God. Now, again, that's not to say you won't run into Muslims who believe that, but so, all right, here's a long comment.
There's nothing wrong with a country being ruined by a particular religious worldview, not because there are citizens in that country that subscribe to that particular religion that don't subscribe to that particular religion. Does that mean it is wrong for the laws of the country to reflect it? Of course, a country may be Christian in its foundational legal and constitutional character, and it may debate another country that may be founded on Islam or whatever other maybe religion, but it isn't automatically a good thing if a country adopts an a-religious secular legal system. The simple issue in that is always, why is anything legal or illegal from a secular point of view?
Yeah, and that's a longer way of saying what I was saying earlier is you have to have a standard.
Mm-hmm.
And my problem with secular humanism and a government that is totally separate from religion is that then then the standard just becomes human consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing to really stand on at that point.
Yeah. And I guess I would carry that out to, like, if there's nothing to stand on, then what is the foundation for what's right or what's wrong? You know what I mean? You're reading.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm not sure I understand this comment.
What do y'all think of the scripture? As for my people, children oppress them and women rule over them. Sounds like where we are and where we're headed. I know, never read a Bible verse. So,
is that from Isaiah maybe?
Yeah, I believe so. But that's one of the ways in which we would know that a nation is under judgment is when children and women rule or oppress you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, some thoughts on Christian nationalism. I would commend to people, go check out the article at Christ Overall. I put a link in the comments.
Yeah, back to the chat's comment. I've heard that. I think there's a lot of conversation from, I don't know, different people in my stream who are like, we are on our way. We're definitely in judgment. And we would know that we were in judgment because, Kamala Harris won and she's a woman ruling over, all, the nation and things like that. I need to give it some more thought. I'm not 100% sure that that's the only way to know that a nation would be under judgment. I think there's reason to put forth argument that we're under judgment right now. I mean, the killing of our unborn children, or the ways in which we prohibit work in our country, or we encourage people not to work in our country. I think that there's a lot of reasons why we could make argument that our nation would be under judgment.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the moderators are still there, but I did a teaching series on the question, is America under God's judgment, a couple of years ago on my Theology Mom YouTube channel. So that might be of some help to that.
All right.
Yeah. So you want to talk about justice now?
I do want. It's a bigger issue than what I feel like I can sum up in the 15 minutes that we have left. And so, I don't really know how to make it very succinct. I am very interested in talking about justice and having broader conversations on both diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice. Recently, I've seen more statistics that talk about young people, Gen Z especially, who are, absorbing or imbibing the principles of socialism, and would definitely, vote for a socialist leader. I think in 2019, there was a survey that was done, and 70% of millennials said that they would vote for a socialist person in leadership or as president. And I think what's really missing, and what was missing for me when I had a lot of that worldview, was that there aren't a ton of truly historically biblical teachings on justice. What does justice mean? And so right now, I think we're seeing probably three ideas for justice. We have one, which would be a biblical justice approach. And then two, we see the secular side of justice that's kind of split up into two parts, which one would be the person who may be a Christian, may not be a Christian, but they really just want things that are fair. So it's not fair for homosexuals not to be married, but heterosexuals can. It's not fair that, things aren't completely equal across the board. So that's one side of the secular justice conversation. But then the other side of the secular justice conversation is the social justice neo-Marxists. And they are very
socialists.
Yeah, the socialists, the person who is definitely in their heart seeking to move our country in a specific way. I would say AOC is one of those people who is definitely trying to move our country in a specific direction. And so I really want to do more conversations on what does socialism really look like and what are some of the end results. I was listening to a podcast, or actually I wasn't listening to a podcast. I was listening to an audiobook called The Abolition of the Family. I might have mentioned it on here a couple times, but in that book, it was written by a socialist, and she mentioned that in true socialism, if you want to be a real socialist, you have to stand against the nuclear family. And we see this in Marx and his thoughts about the family and child rearing and all of that. But I don't think that we're having enough thread through conversation. People just get lumped into the bucket of, well, that's a social justice warrior, woo, watch out, without understanding that the kid over here who just wants things equal, while I don't agree with them and while they are wrong, it's not the same as the person who's trying to abolish your family. They might eventually, get moved over to that side, but we need to have, to me, just more thread through conversations. How do I talk to the person who just wants everything fair versus how do I want to talk to the person who is telling me we should defund the police, abolish the family, and, give children hormone blockers so that we can queer society?
Yeah, I think it's a distinction. I hadn't really thought about that before, but I think you're onto something there, that when we're talking in conversation with people, to differentiate what kind of justice-oriented person is this? Is this just a well-meaning person who wants the world to be a more fair place? Or is this a person who's actually advocating for socialist worldview issues like abolish the family and children's rights, and not the Katie Faust version of children's rights where every child is, ought to have a mother and a father. That's not what we're talking about.
No, we're talking about more like child theory things.
And things like total redistribution of wealth and power and privilege and queering of not just people, but of society. And to maybe explain, when socialists use the word queering, what are they really saying with that? They're not just talking about being gay.
No. The idea of queering is to remove all of societal norms. It's to break down anything that is normative. So not simply heteronormative, but normative in society overall. So we want to queer that thing. And so, yeah, I just don't think that there's enough conversation truly on what is biblical justice. Like I shared it with you earlier. I was thinking about the 10 Commandments and how the 10 Commandments really do set us up for strong conversations on justice, defining biblical justice as, how we treat one another according to God's eternal moral principles. But it also looks at, when we think about the 10 Commandments, what is my relationship to God? How am I walking justly with my God? And we see that in the first part of the 10 commandments. It's like the first 3 or 4 commandments. But then the other, 6 or 7 commandments talk about how do we walk out life righteously with the person who's in front of me. And so in thinking about the 10 commandments, I was thinking about, something like lying. While people will say, people shouldn't lie, or lying, we'll say lying is a sin. But do we really understand that lying is an injustice? And can we actually make an argument against lying from the position of lying actually is an injustice? Like what when you lie, what are you saying to or about the human person in front of you? If we are rational human beings created in God's image, like there's so much justice conversation wrapped up in the 10 commandments. And so I want to do a bit more of a deep dive on justice.
In fact, the talk I'm giving next weekend in New Mexico, and for those of you who live in New Mexico, and if you live in the Albuquerque area, we will both be speaking at a conference in Albuquerque at Heights Christian Church next Saturday, a week from Saturday. If people want to come. But the talk I'm going to be doing has a large section about lying as a justice issue.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a chunk of the talk.
You taking my stuff?
No.
Okay, that's fine. And I'm going to be talking on queer theory. And, what is queer theory? Where do we see it coming into, our schools? How is queer theory just now an idea, an ideology that's being absorbed by culture? Is it connected to race? Yeah, queer theory. Big fun.
Susanna says people seem to think socialist countries are like Scandinavian countries, but they aren't true socialism.
They aren't.
Because they have free markets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Drew says defining our terms in conversations is so important. Y'all have definitely taught me that. Well, if we've taught you that, then awesome, because that's a big part of the struggle right now. In fact, our friend Scott Allen from Disciple Nations has a book coming out in a few weeks just about the hijacking of the definition of terms. Mm-hmm. And he goes through like 10 key terms that have been hijacked by the culture, like love and justice and tolerance, and kind of what does the culture say about these things, and then what does the Bible have to say. He's the author of the book
Why Social Justice
is not
biblical
justice.
Why biblical justice is not social justice.
Yeah, so Scott Allen, if you can be watching for that book.
Future is here. Future then said YouTube did me dirty on the notifications. Petty Future is about to enter the chat. Hey, Petty Future. Yes. Oh my gosh. You guys, I wish I could just meet all of y'all in person. We could just have one big old family roundup. What's up, Jermaine? What's up? I don't know. People just getting the notifications late. Feel like now we got to start all over.
Well, we're almost done.
Jenny says queer brings the fringe to the center to normalize it. It's an attack on capitalism. The gender queer attacks family. The queer Palestine activists are trying to queer colonialism. Yes, it is really just an attack on anything that's normalized or that is a hegemony. That is it's a normal discourse, or a discourse that may have power within a society. And so when we think of the nuclear family, or when we think about marriage is seen as one man and one woman. The queering of that means that anyone should be able to get married. The man can marry a cat, or the woman can marry a building, or children can marry their uncle. We need to queer it. We need to just break down all anything that's normative. Yeah.
All right, friends.
CFBU Family Roundup 2025. I'm telling you,
we just need a church, people.
Yes.
If you are a pastor in a church who wants to partner with us for a national conference, and you can accommodate, let's say 350, 400 people for our first national conference, please reach out to us, because we would love to do a national conference.
Yeah.
But we can't find a church to say, I'm all in. We don't want just a building. We want a partner that believes in the ministry and is like, we are all in with you guys. We want you to come. We're going to put together a volunteer team to help make it happen. And we provide the speakers. We'll provide awesome content. We have great ideas for a national conference. We need a place, people.
Yes.
So we are trusting the Lord for that provision.
Jenny says it's also part. Can you put that up there for me? Thank you. No, you're good. It's also part of what can be unburdened by what has been a queering of history. Yes. So the idea, this is actually a very Marxist idea, and I am forgetting the name of the book that this idea comes from, that is written by Marx. But yes, Kamala Harris's being unburdened by what has been is getting rid of the old. It is a breaking down of the things that have been, the things that have upheld the capitalistic ideas. You got to remember who Kamala's father is and his connections to, or his disdain of, capitalism and things like that. And so yes, that is very Marxist, but AOC also has a very Marxist way of speaking as well when she says we have a world to win, or something like that. It's the last line in a communist manifesto. It's one of Marx's last words in the communist manifestos. We have a world to win, or they have a world to win. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it.
I'll bring extra pineapple for pizza in case they forget. Girl, amen. Okay, come to Alabama. I'm sure Kevin, Alton, or I can help with a church. Ooh, I would love to do an Alabama conference.
We haven't had any luck with that. So
no,
we're looking. It has to be kind of near an airport and a facility to be able to accommodate 350, 400 people. These are the things we're looking for. All right, we got to hop off here.
I know, my gosh. It's time for me to go home. We're tired. It's been a big week. You guys, we appreciate you so much. Please consider giving to the Center for Biblical Unity. You can do that by going to centerforbiblicalunity.com and clicking on the donate button. Your support goes directly to the Center for Biblical Unity. It helps to do things like advertising, or allowing us to travel and go and speak and be able to give the true hope of the gospel and the unity that's afforded to us because of the death of Christ. And so, yes, please consider donating to the Center for Biblical Unity. You can do that at centerforbiblicalunity.com and hit the donate button. You guys, we will see you. We will not see you next week. Next week, we are going to be traveling to, I believe, no, we will. We don't leave until Thursday.
Yeah, we might see
Thursday, Friday. Yeah. So we will have another family meeting next week. We really